Hey everybody, Colton here, and Tom Holland has just said something about Spider-Man Brand New Day that has me more excited for this movie than any of the other news that has come out about this film. And that is saying a lot, because this movie is reported to feature both the Hulk and the Punisher, which is just... yes, sign me up. However, I do hope that this movie primarily focuses on Spider-Man. He's had to share the screen way too much in his own movies. But if they take like the James Gunn approach to having big names from the comics serve as supporting cast, I am all for it. So let's read these quotes from Holland and then we'll discuss. Tom said, quote, "I am obviously over the moon and so excited. Playing Spider-Man is like hanging out with an old pal, and I think we were really restricted with what we could do in that last movie because of COVID. Now we're really going to lean into that old school filmmaking and shoot in real locations, which is why we are starting in Glasgow. We are going to use the streets of Glasgow for the massive set piece that we are putting together." Now, in case you didn't know, Glasgow is a city in Scotland that has been pretty popular as of late for Hollywood productions. But I want to be clear that this doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to see Spider-Man in the movie travel to Scotland. They are likely just going to repurpose the streets as a New York City street, and I am beginning to think that we are going to see Spider-Man and the Punisher fight the Hulk in the street. So anyway, Tom goes on to say, "It's gonna feel like making SpiderMan Homecoming again. It has been such a long time that I've done it that it's gonna feel like a breath of fresh air. I think that the fans are going to be over the moon with what we are putting together. I know that we left you with a massive cliffhanger at the end of No Way Home, where Peter Parker sacrificed his identity to save the people that he loves most in the world. So Spider-Man Brand New Day is a fresh start. It is exactly that. That's all I can say. That's all I've been allowed to say, and I am well over the hump of giving away spoilers. So don't you worry, I'm not going to do that today." Okay, so there's the quote, and here's why this has me so pumped. Spider-Man No Way Home, it kind of sucks.
How dare you, sir? You are gross.
Don't get me wrong, I simultaneously love the movie. I'm very conflicted on it because I love that they brought back Toby and Andrew and all the villains. I thought that was great, and I'm glad that they didn't shy away from doing something as big as bringing all the Spider-Man together to face their villains from previous films, especially those Raimi films that I grew up on. I thought it was really dope. I was just as excited for it as all of you guys, and at the time, of course, I loved the movie just like everybody else. But in retrospect, you know, a few years away from it, I do have some complaints with the film. I mean, the movie, it's ugly, the plot is clunky, and the whole thing just feels really small. I've been saying for years now that No Way Home feels like it was shot in a garage, and that's because it was, due to the pandemic. This whole movie was shot on sound stages, as Tom just confirmed. And I have to say, I feel so seen with Tom Holland acknowledging this. I mean, think about it. No Way Home primarily took place in 3 apartments, a basement, a classroom, and on some scaffolding. And then the one big set piece we got, like with the mirror dimension, it looked terrible. You could tell the whole thing was shot on green screen. It just didn't look good at all. Now, I fully understand that No Way Home was limited on what it could do with the COVID restrictions and trying to stay safe while making the movie, and I will always be thankful for what this movie did for the theater industry and for fandom at a really rock bottom time for this entire industry. But having said all that, I will say that this movie, it's not great. I don't really think that it fully holds up. A lot of the plot just doesn't make any sense, and my biggest complaint is, of course, that it looks like it took place in a shoebox. And you know, that's fine for some movies, but a multiversal Spider-Man movie? Nah. So I am over the moon to hear that they are aware of the flaws of the previous installment and that they are going to go out to real locations to film this movie, and hopefully they can reach the same beautiful cinematography that we saw in those Raimi films and an Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, Amazing Spider-Man 2, it sucked. It really sucked. But it looks great. Now, while I may sound a bit like a film snob right now, nitpicking the set designs and the cinematography, yeah, I as a movie nerd may have the vocabulary and the understanding of filmmaking to articulate what felt off about that movie, while perhaps a more casual fan may not. But I guarantee you, casual fans, casual moviegoers can feel when a movie feels small. And it greatly affects that transcendent experience that audiences are looking for when they go to see a movie in theaters. And it's also great news to hear that this is being accompanied by a close-to-the-ground story. I love that Jon Bernthal's Punisher will be there. That is awesome. The only thing that concerns me is I have read some reports that they are really going to tone down the violence, which That's fine if you do it right. I know we can't nor do we need to see a bunch of blood and the gruesome stuff we're used to seeing with Punisher in a Spider-Man movie. But what they need to do to make it work is work it into the story. For example, maybe Frank Castle isn't cursing as much because he is trying to be a good example for Spider-Man. Maybe he isn't shooting people and bathing in the blood of his enemies because he's trying to be a good example for Spider-Man. So if you're going to tone down the character, have that be in the story so it doesn't just feel like you're neutering the character. Have there be a reason that we're not seeing him do the things he normally does. And you can get pretty creative, I think, and keep that PG-13 rating. You could have like just a scene where Punisher's left alone with a group of bad guys in a room. We see the door shut and then we just hear a lot of screaming. There are creative ways to get around that. And I really hope that this is all tying into Punisher trying to become a hero and take the path of, say, Daredevil in an attempt to bring Daredevil back from the more violent and vengeful Daredevil that was set up at the end of Born Again. Frank has always pushed Daredevil to be more like him, but I think he's soon going to realize that he needs to change and that Matt was right all along, especially with Kingpin now painting heroes to look like they're dangerous. Punisher, I think, will take a new approach and try to bring Matt back to the light and prove that Kingpin was wrong about vigilantes. I think Punisher wants to show that vigilantes are more than the violent, taking the law into their own hands menaces that Mayor Fisk has painted them to be. And I think Punisher is going to realize that he has been a horrible example for what a vigilante can be. And I think that it could be Spider-Man that finally gets that message through to Frank and he can then pass it to Daredevil. I mean, we saw Spider-Man go through this in No Way Home and his entire Home trilogy where he has finally discovered what kind of hero he wants to be. And as a New York City vigilante, he is also going to be burdened by these new crackdowns from Fisk, and he will definitely have a role to play in this story that is unfolding in Born Again. So fingers crossed that Spider-Man can make an appearance in season 2, and fingers double crossed that Daredevil and Kingpin can appear in Brand New Day. However, the ability for Kingpin to show up in a movie is apparently, according to Vincent D'Onofrio, tied up in a rights dispute, and Sony would likely need to give permission for Spider-Man to show up in an MCU TV show. So I don't really know how they plan on dancing around Kingpin not appearing in Brand New Day, or Spidey not appearing in season 2 of Born Again, but hey, maybe the Punisher's role in the film will help bridge that gap. But hey, those are just my thoughts and theories. I would love to hear yours down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. I've been your host, Colton Ogburn, and I will see you next time. Bye!
You're still here. It's over. Go home.